You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, a crossover episode with special guest Javi Reyes of Locked On Padres. But first, I want to thank you guys so much for listening to Locked On Rangers and Locked On Padres, making them your first listens of the day. If you haven't already, go follow us on Twitter at Brice Paterik or at Javi with two eyes Peno on Twitter. Follow at is it at LO Padres for your team account?
LO_Padres. LO
LO
underscore Padres.
underscore Padres or at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe to both of us on YouTube or wherever the heck you get your podcasts. I'm here talking about what it means to no longer be a sad boy of a team that was a perennially sad boy and now is less so sad boys. Javi Reyes of Locked On Padres. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing so fantastic. I would actually argue I've never been more fantastic in my life. It's been very good considering that, we're in a baseball lockout and there's not much good stuff these days. You know what I mean? We don't get a lot of news, Bryce. I know you got a whole lot of news and you were just, man. Can I just ask? I mean, I know that your listeners probably got this. I'm sorry for running into the cliche question, but first reaction, man. Like, what is like, because we've talked a lot, and you mentioned sad boys. We've talked a lot and Locked On in our group chat saying who is like the sad boy conglomerate. It was you, Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates, Miller Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks. Although he doesn't act like it, he's able to hide it a little bit more. And there's a couple others I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Paul of Locked On Rockies. That boy is
God, the saddest of
sad.
boys. The saddest of boys. And now you've graduated. You've ascended out of the ash. You've made it. You are like a dragon flying through the wind. You are Iron Man lifting off for the first time. What was it like in that first moment,
man? It was incredible. And, for the Rangers fans who've already heard this, like, we're all still enjoying this. We're all still like, are we sure this really happened? Like, did the lockout make it not count? Like, is this for real? I did like a best case scenario episode, and I was like just barely. I was like, all right. I did like Trevor Story and Marcus Semien, plus Seiya Suzuki was like my best case scenario for the Rangers. I think I also included Clayton Kershaw, but I was like, this is even better than like my best case I ever could have hoped for. The Rangers talked all this stuff like all season, front office, and apparently got the okay from ownership just to be like, oh, we're gonna spend all this money. We're gonna spend all this money. Oh my god, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm like, shut up. No, you are not. You dang liars. You haven't spent money, more than $30 million since 2014, or I guess it was December 2013, when they spent like $110 million on Shin-Soo Choo. That was the last big contract they gave out. Since then, the biggest contract they've given out is Lance Lynn, 3 years, $30 million before the 2019 season, I believe. But they haven't done anything. Ownership hadn't. And I'm like, why would you go and spend all of this now? Also, like, the Rangers aren't going to be good next year now. Like, they're going to be better, significantly better, and going to be a lot of fun, and that's great. But, like, it doesn't necessarily even make sense in the timeline. Unless you go out and, I don't know, some crazy scenario. You get, like, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Even then, you're still not competitive. But, like, I don't know, that'd be crazy. There's no way that would happen. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, my God. I was absolutely floored by just Marcus Semien in general. Like, I'm like, if that's it, and he's the shortstop next year, great, awesome, very happy, fantastic offseason. And then they go and add John Gray, which was at the top of my list of guys who I wanted pitcher-wise because the Rangers still need pitching help, and quite a decent chunk of it. And then Cole Calhoun, I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Cool, solid, veteran. They need a lot of help, a lot of bats.
But that wasn't it, was
one.
it? But that wasn't it, sir. Oh, no.
That wasn't it. There was
one more
Corey
thing at the bottom of your
Seager.
stocking. There was one more thing at the bottom of the Christmas stocking, and that was Corey Seager for 10 years, $325 million. I forgot exactly what it was, but
exactly $325 million. It's a little bit front loaded. There are a couple signing bonuses. It's not like super duper front loaded or anything, but it's still more than anybody else is going to be willing to give. All those poor teams out there that aren't willing to spend big. I know your team's not one of those poor teams. They just extended Fernando Tatis Jr. this stupid big extension. They signed Manny Machado. they went out and actually did things that our teams have found the market inefficiency, actually giving a crap and trying to get good players. It's wild how that works. You know, it's wild to me that other people haven't thought to try that.
Yeah, it's a truly wild concept. And I mean, with the Padres' perspective is also like they were a team that didn't spend money before. At least the Rangers like had a history and whatnot, which you could actually argue makes it more frustrating that they just all of a sudden were like, we're not going to do that anymore.
Well,
you know what I mean? The Padres,
fair,
this is new for me. You know, the whole amount of money that they spent.
Yeah, and to be fair, like they didn't spend like a whole crazy amount of money. Like I don't even remember what Adrian Beltre's contract was, but he was their second option that year. Like they got him because they didn't want Cliff Lee, and obviously that worked out more perfectly than anyone could ever hoped or dreamed, and that was wonderful. But like they also gave out money to A-Rod, and that didn't go well. And I look back at that team, and like people said, like, oh, there was nothing around A-Rod. There was still Pudge Rodriguez. There was still Rafael Palmeiro. There's just no pitching. There's just trash pitching. So like it wasn't that there was literally nowhere there. I kind of get what they were thinking, but like maybe sign like one or two half decent pitchers, and that might be a competitive team. And that was a team that like literally just made the playoffs 3 times in a 4-year span. So like I kind of get it. But anyway, like yeah, it made me frustrated that they weren't spending money. But you could kind of see they were kind of trying to keep themselves afloat in the final years of Adrian Beltre. 2017, they made a game 163, right. And 2018 they tried and just weren't quite there. And 2019 they kind of fluttered around for being good for half a season. They had Hunter Pence doing fun things, Joey Gallo breaking out. But again, both those guys were hurt for the back half of the season. And despite Lance Lynn and Mike Minor both being pretty good, and Danny Santana somehow like having like a 850 OPS season out of nowhere, there was nothing else. So it was like, it's about time. They didn't have the depth in the farm system. It had been gone. You needed to rebuild. And I appreciate them starting the full rebuild in earnest on a year where there's just 60 games. It's like, all right, let's just ease into it. It's going to be really rough, but it's just going to be for 2 months. And then next year, you're going to lose 100 games, and it's going to suck real hard. And by God, did it.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. And here's the thing about the Rangers spending the money too. It's you and I as people who cover baseball, I guess you could say, like we're used to getting all of these type of reports. And maybe this is just I have blinders on to other leagues at the moment, but we get a lot of those reports that are like, oh, the X team is interested in X player, or this team reportedly this. And a lot of times you just feel like, okay, I mean, I still think the funniest thing to happen before the lockout was John Heyman saying how many teams were interested in Chris Bryant. And it was literally like 9 teams. It's like, yeah, like no crap, dude. Like that's not, I didn't learn literally anything from that. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he said, like the report was these 9 teams or there was 9 teams interested and all of a sudden it's gone down to just 3 report. Like there was, I just felt like you didn't learn anything there. It's like, okay, so basically anyone that's a contender.
You do,
but then with the Rangers,
I will say you do learn things. You learn that his agent is using him as a mouthpiece. That's what you learn.
Yeah, that's what you do learn indeed, and that happens more in baseball. And then with the Rangers, though, we did get that like report that was like Rangers reportedly ready to spend big money, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, cute. Like, okay. What they mean by that is they'll spend like, $50 million or whatever on 2 okay players, and then they'll sell the farm system or whatever.
What?
And it's like, no, they were dead serious. Like they really went out right before the lockout started in that awesome 48-hour, probably a little bit longer than that, 64, whatever.
I was right about 48.
Plus 48, maybe that's like 72 hours.
I think it was right about 48 hours, honestly, because it was about like 3:00 ish on Sunday when they figured out that they signed. Actually, it was even, was it less? I don't know. I don't know what the timeline was, but anyway, it was lots of great holiday stuff. But you know what else is great around the holidays? Besides getting a Corey Seager in your stocking, getting a Built Bar in your stocking.
Oh yes, sir. Thank you for saying it. I was just about to say it, and you took the words right out of my mouth, man. I love them Built Bars, man. Love them. Yeah, fantastic.
If this holiday season you can grab a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar is filled with so much holiday goodness, rich and decadent in flavor. There's a bazillion different flavors, and it can give you that extra fuel. Wherever you found Built Bar giving you the most fuel, or what's your favorite flavor? Take your pick of one of those 2 questions. Asking the hard-hitting questions here on Locked On Rangers.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Always
I was
asking.
teeing that up. I was teeing that up for you.
I know. I lagged a little bit because I had to remember what was going on. I got a little confused. Look, I messed up. I looked at my phone for half a second. It happens, folks. It happens. But
That's all right. Mint brownie is my favorite. What about you?
I'm a big apple almonds crisp guy. I know that they don't really have that currently in circulation, but they've got all these other flavors. Cherry barcia, more importantly, is my mom's favorite flavor. And if that doesn't tell you anything, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what will. Cherry barcia rules. And they've got these new flavors too. Gingerbread, eggnog. I haven't tasted them yet. But every single time that Built Bar comes out with a new flavor, it's delicious. So I don't know what to say, man.
They're all fantastic. If you like those marshmallow treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on some Built Bar Puffs. They're light, puffy, marshmallowy through and through, different flavors, all covered in chocolate. Tastes so good. You won't believe that they're covered in protein, except we told you they are, and it says it on the box. So you can go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
That's right, man. That's right. I mean, they're just so damn good, man. Like, I want to eat one right now. Like, I'm vibing to it. But you know what else I often vibe to, my friend, until I get in trouble with my friends because I, for the greater good, used my league manager powers to change out somebody's lineup because they weren't starting something and it was affecting the playoff pool. And now I'm in trouble and everyone in the league is yelling at me. That's fantasy sports. And you know what is really great for fantasy sports, guys? Fantrax. It's the best platform in this industry, man. It's super customizable, whether it's redraft or dynasty or keeper. Okay, that's the same thing. A dynasty and keeper, same thing. But you get my point. Best ball leagues out there, man. Create or join a fantasy baseball commissioner league. Invite your friends and dominate your draft this season. Just because we're in a lockout does not mean you can't start getting ready and looking at them projections.
Oh, of course.
Salivating. You know what I mean? Salivating. Can't wait to see the projections on Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. You know what I mean? I don't know. The 45 bombs? I don't know. Between the two of them? I don't know. What's the over-under for both of them? Maybe 60? I don't know, man. But I can't wait to see the projections for them because, will they have enough offense around them to get RBIs and get all this stuff? Can they repeat? It's all that stuff. I love talking fantasy sports, and Fantrax is the best for it. And if you're in the mood, ladies and gentlemen, if I already haven't sold you, this will really get you salivating. All right, if you want to go to the most trusted fantasy sports thing app site since 2008, Fantrax is also inviting you to sign up today for free. And if you do, Brice, you'll be entered to win an official MLB signed Fernando Tatis Jr. baseball. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Simply go to fantrax.com/lockdown and use the promo code Tatis for the Tatis Jr. baseball. There you go. To win, if there's anything lacking in your current fantasy league manager, Fantrax likely has it. Remember, don't miss the opportunity. Sign up today to win that official MLB signed Fernando Tatis Jr. baseball. Fantrax.com/lockdown. Promo code Tatis. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Play ball.
Oh my gosh, your audio and video were like not syncing up. Just like watching your video like catch up to it, along with that great commentary was just delightful. But we're here with the insightful, delightful, the sprite-filled,
the frightful
Javier Reyes,
the frightful.
I
want to be feared.
The frightful.
Yeah, I want to be feared.
Fear
me.
Reyes of Locked On.
I had some tension
Padres.
in that ad read. I'm not gonna lie, because
That's all right.
He was starting J.D. McKissick, and I was like, literally, playoff spots are decided on this. 12:59, I was like, it's not like I chose which player for him to do. I only did it because it was a guy who literally was out. You know what I mean? He literally was listed as out. He was injured. It was said that morning. Set your lineups, folks. Don't be a jerk. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my goodness.
It's ridiculous. And now I'm the villain. So
that's all right. You already were. That's all right. But we're talking about Rangers, Padres. We're talking about teams that are on the up and coming. And I feel like I see a lot of 2019 Padres in this Rangers team. There's no Fernando Tatis Jr. in the farm system that's going to come up. And, well, I don't want to doubt Josh Young. I'm not saying that he isn't Fernando Tatis Jr. That's been my whole bit is never saying that Josh Young won't do a thing because he's proven people wrong at every step of the way. The guys are like, oh, I don't know if he's going to hit for power. Like, he's going to hit for power, and he's going to hit bombs, and he's going to play acceptable defense at third base and crush it next year when he's up probably by the start of the season. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. But it's fun to see that like up and coming go from that to, I mean, the Rangers and Padres went literally in exact opposite directions in the 2020 season. The Rangers bottom fell off, and the Padres went from pretty good feisty team, like still, actually they still went 70 and 92 that year, the first year that they signed Manny Machado. Obviously they didn't add another guy that was his caliber like the Rangers did, having two guys. And I think, well, this might be even better than the Rangers starting like pitching rotation next year. They had Joey Lucchesi, Eric Lauer, Brice Paterik, Cal Quantrill, Dinelson Lamet in that rotation. The Rangers also don't have a Kirby Yates level guy putting up those kind of stupid numbers. An ERA plus of 3.54 that year in 2019. It's just stupid good. But I'm curious, what all did it take to get from 2019 to 2020? Because I've lost track of when all these many moves the Padres have made have come to get them to playoff contenders in 2020 and to the playoffs, I should say, in 2020, and then very strong playoff contenders in 2021, even though things didn't quite work out quite as well.
Yeah, I mean, okay. And you know, I'm wearing the Friar robe. I'm a Friar pretty much. Look, it's a lot to explain, but it starts with just finding the ultimate gem of the generation in Tatis, the James Shield trade that everybody's been saying over and over. Like, that's really where it kind of starts. And in general, like, people, it's not that it gets forgotten now, but it's just kind of, you know, it's worth remembering that the Padres at one point had what many people considered the best farm system in like the history of baseball, or at least in a very long time. They were stacked from top to bottom, you know, when they still had Tatis down there, and, you know, once upon a time, Mackenzie Gore, who used to be the top pitching prospect in baseball, he was in there. You get CJ Abrams, you get, you know, so all these players, like, there's so many guys that they've given away. Cal Quantrill was revealed, what's the word? Was reviled, or is that, no, I think that's the antonym of what I'm thinking of. But he was viewed as like a decent prospect. There was so much depth in the farm system, which is what I think. Revered. There we go. Thank you so much. That's why they pay you the big bucks, man. In terms of like prospects, they were really all over the place, and they started trading some of them, and some of it worked out. You know, obviously, Joe Musgrove, the king who threw a no-hitter against your team earlier this year. I had to bring it up, man. Whoa, the swinging fryer. So he did that. I'm on one today, man. I'm just tired. Maybe I'm just hungry. I think that's what it is. I'm probably hungry. But he does that trade, and then you do the Snell trade, you do the Darvish trade, you do the trade for Mike Clevenger, you do the trade for Austin Nola. There's so many different moves that they made. They moved for Trent Grisham. Like, that's what's so crazy about this Padres team. Tommy Pham, Jay Cronenworth. That's what's so crazy about this Padres team is there's barely anybody on the team that wasn't acquired via a trade or is like one of their big pieces. The only one that hasn't been acquired via a trade, really, you know, that wasn't acquired via a trade that's, you know, a hefty piece in the organization. It's probably CJ Abrams or Mackenzie Gore, who I just mentioned before. Otherwise, it's like Machado also, signing. All these guys through trades. You could argue that Tatis is a truly fully grown guy, I could say, from their system. They traded for him when he was super young, and then he started coming up, and then they got him. But still, they did trade for him. Like, that is worth bringing up. But it's pretty mad and wild to see that they changed their fortune so quickly. The Padres did, and I think that's what I would say for the Rangers fans is, you know, we'll have to see about how the farm holds up. We'll have to see if they want to trade for more talent. Whether or not they can get some good trades and they can get themselves that sneaky Cronenworth guy that comes out of nowhere and is really good, or just a valuable piece, or if you know, hit big on a pitcher like Joe Musgrove, who knows exactly. But I will say, while the Rangers, that is a whole lot of money to trust on two guys, and then for the money for John Gray, who, in fairness, I know that his stats don't look great on standard, but, you know, it is in Coors Field. He's got that plus fastball. Like, he's got some good stuff. It is true that I'd be nervous because that is a lot of money allocated for a team that has not been very good. This isn't a team that won 85 games and then decide to add, the two superstars. This is one of the bottom teams in the league. While I would be nervous, I would also say things can change just like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it won't be next year, but maybe it's a sign that they're preparing. Maybe they got some guys coming up in the system that are going to debut for the team and make them a little bit more of a contender in the old AL West division, man.
Yeah, the AL West is going to be wild, and the Rangers are taking a big risk. You could say they're betting on themselves, but you know where else I like to bet? It's betonline.ag. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues, it's March to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. All the sports. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to receive your bonus, just like that bonus that Corey Seager got. Probably not quite as big, but that's all right. You can make it just as big as his if you're really, really great at betting on things from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline. It's where the game starts. Now, you talked about the Rangers making that big bet on themselves and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. And while the Rangers system is much improved, I mean, a few years back, they had a great system from like 2010 to 2016. Various trades wiped that system out, from Cole Hamels trade to the Jonathan Lucroy trade to other different things. They just hadn't quite matriculated talent, and they had honestly failed pretty badly at the first round of the Major League Draft for a long, long time. Basically, it's one of John Daniels' biggest weaknesses as a GM is their failures in the first round. But the last few years, they've kind of turned that around. They haven't been picking super high until like last year, but they have some really great picks. I believe according to MLB Pipeline, their top 4 prospects are their most recent 4 first-round draft picks, which is very exciting and a good indication that this team is on their way to getting things right. Josh Young is the third baseman from Texas Tech, Rackham, who's going to be probably the starting opening day third baseman and should be fairly solid this year. They also obviously got Jack Leiter in the draft this past year. Cole Winn should be a very serviceable middle of the rotation kind of guy and should be up towards the back half of this year. Jack Leiter, we'll see. He could make it up as soon as next year if things go really, really well for him. He's just that polished. But again, getting a farm system as deep with star talent that the Padres had, that's what the Rangers don't really have in their system. They have, Jack Leiter has star potential. Josh Young, people don't see him as having star potential. I do. And Ezekiel Duran might be one of those little pieces they got for a season and a half of Joey Gallo from the Yankees that is looking better and better by the day. He was an Arizona League fall star, not an all-star, but a fall star, and having a 900 plus OPS in that span. But it seems like even when you do get aggressive and you do make all these trades to go get guys, and you don't give up all your top guys in your farm system, but a good chunk of that depth, it can lead you into bad things if you don't properly prepare. And it feels like that's kind of what happened to the Padres this year, is like they had all the talent in the world at the top end, but that kind of depth, what is that what they were missing this year, is just the depth? Where did things go wrong for this Padres team? What is something that you would have liked to see them do better to prepare in either the offseason or at the trade deadline to keep the bottom from falling out from them in the back half of the season?
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, right? Like, what happened to the Padres? One of the great second half collapses that we've seen in baseball in a while. They were also the talk of the town, just in terms of just a topic level. I mean, everyone was talking about Dodgers Padres for most of the season. It was exciting. It was electric. Those games were like Warriors Clippers back in the day when those two teams would be going at it. It was like one of the better rivalries, and it was exciting. What basically happened to the Padres is, it was depth. But it's also the fact that the guys that the Padres traded for, they didn't all hit. And some of them did. Jake Cronenworth clearly showed that his 2020 was not a fluke, and I think he's going to be a solid MLB player for a long time, or at least hopefully. Might just be like the new Ben Zobrist. Joe Musgrove, like I said, he threw the no-hitter. You see, I'm gonna throw that out as many times as I can on this podcast. But then for other guys, you saw Blake Snell was not himself this year. I'm optimistic about next year, but Blake Snell wasn't very good, and he certainly wasn't worth all the stuff that they gave up, including Luis Patino, who was one of their top-level pitching prospects, who's now in Tampa Bay. And then you had Tommy Pham, who was originally the centerpiece of the Hunter Renfroe trade, and then he literally swung through so many fastballs down the middle that it drove me insane. WRC plus of like 27. That's right, 27.
That's
when
not
it
good.
came to runners in a scoring position. It might have went up or down a little bit, but for the most part, it was like he was one of the worst in all of baseball. I'm gonna actually check that out a little bit later to make sure.
Make sure you're not full of it.
No, and like just how far down the list of WRC plus in terms of runners in scoring position he was this year. And then you have guys like Eric Hosmer. Oh, I said his name. Ah, dang it. The long rule of my podcast is not the same. You had the Padres first baseman who went back to being the ground ball wizard that he is. And it was annoying because the year before his launch angle was like 8.6. Went back to 3.7. The ground ball gremlin, indeed. The ground ball gremlin, ladies and gentlemen. I love that's such a good name for him. I'm going to keep calling him that from now on. Instead of Padres first, I'll leave it to an option. Each episode, folks, you get to stay tuned and see what do I call him? Padres first baseman or ground ball gremlin? So all that happens, and it's definitely the depth thing, but it's also that their guys didn't hit as much, and that's what the big thing is in all of sports right now. Where you kind of wonder. This is the age-old question: do you sacrifice the depth for that top-level talent that can help you? Sometimes it pans out. Oftentimes, it's a little bit of a risk. That's the gamble, and the Padres clearly probably paid a little bit too much, put a little bit too much weight into succeeding in 2020, which is what I think a lot of people did with a lot of players, individual players, guys who were just over the top, unbelievable, or they underperformed and people thought that was legit. Jose Altuve comes to mind, had a really off 2020 this year, best second baseman in baseball, basically. So, with the exception of your boy, Marcus Semien. But that's the whole point, right? Everybody's wondering, like, did the Padres mess up? I think they went for it. The problem is going to be their roster isn't nearly as flexible. A lot of people send me messages on the podcast and say, well, they're prospects that you don't know what they're going to be. You should trade for talent. I'm like, yeah, but the big thing is that they're assets, not to refer as human beings as assets. I'm not trying to come off like I'm Steve Cohen or anything, but they ran out. They don't have as many bullets in the chamber to be able to manipulate and maneuver around their roster as they once were able to. So Snell stuck in there and Darvish, like, you better hope that these guys kind of bounce back. And you better hope that the guys that you do have left in that farm system do break out and be the stars that they can be. Otherwise, hey, look, man, use it as a forewarning. I still think the Padres, I don't think that it's over and all that stuff, but it's certainly got a lot harder because a lot of those trades, it clearly shows maybe they should have waited, or at least they should have allocated their resources better. The Padres could have used who they gave up in the Grisham trade, Eric Lauer, who had an ERA of like 3.2 this year. I'm not saying he's a superstar. I'm just saying Grisham, he fell off in the second half. He wasn't very good. And we could have used a decent back end of the rotation guy, considering everything that happened with, Brice Paterik getting hurt. He's fallen off a cliff. Considering that Ryan Weathers was like looking like a rookie of the year. He fell off a cliff. I'm getting sadder the more that I talk about this. And then you have, what's his face, Dinelson Lamet that just can't stay healthy, right? Who you mentioned before. Like, we could have used that. And instead, they were relying on Jake Arrieta in the middle of a playoff race. It's not like they had already, they had an 8-game lead on the next wild card or something like that. No, they were in the middle, in the thick of it, into the thick of it type of playoff race. And now they are just looking back and saying, oh man, that was a real mess. The only hope for Padres fans, and I've been talking for way too long, my apologies. The hope for them right now is saying maybe they were so bad in the second half that there has to be some regression to the mean. This has to be like an 89 win team. There's just simply too much talent for them to be below 500, which is just insane for me to say a lot.
Yeah, I mean, who is it that was out this whole year? The pitcher that you traded for, I can't think of his name.
Right now. Probably Dinelson Lamet is probably the one that was. Mike Clevenger. That's right, Mike Clevenger.
Yeah, you add Clevenger. It's just like for me, it seemed like the bullpen was good, the offense was pretty good. Some guys fell off towards the back half, but you still have like 3 elite offensive options. From second base all the way over to third base, and then whatever you're getting out of the occasional Grisham and Will Myers and ground ball gremlin guy.
That's right.
And maybe some stuff from Tommy Pham. But like that, you got guys with some real upside. Like at their best, Yu Darvish and Blake Snell are Cy Young caliber guys. Joe Musgrove showed that he can be a like number 2 guy. Like that's what kind of numbers he was putting up, and a really solid, reliable guy. And then if you have Brice Paterik, who doesn't completely fall off a cliff at like the number 5 in your rotation, plus whoever he just said 3 seconds ago, whose name I've already forgotten.
Probably Ryan Weathers.
No. The one the trade.
Mike Clevenger?
Literally, that's the one. Literally 3 seconds ago, I already forgot him because I'm
It happens, man. It
names
happens.
leave my brain very quickly.
Do you miss Yu Darvish at all? How much do you tell the people how much you miss Yu Darvish?
Oh, I miss Yu Darvish so much. I love that man so much. I literally did like 2 podcasts worth of things to like bring him back in a fake scenario where the Rangers were competing in 2019, and Adrian Beltre hadn't retired yet, and the Rangers win the 2019 World Series.
Oh man, how about that?
No. Why I said on that podcast, and I'll say it again, why do you need to go to therapy when you can just create fake baseball scenarios that make you happy? You know, who needs that? But yeah, I feel like this is a nice cautionary tale that like everyone wants things to glow up real quick, and they did glow up real quick for the Padres. And even when you have guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., which is the Ranger, like Corey Seager's great, but he's not Fernando Tatis Jr. And Marcus Semien's great, he's not Fernando Tatis Jr. It takes a long time to get out of it, so don't freak out. Is what I'm hearing. If the Rangers have a losing record or are hovering with 500 next year, because it takes patience, and the Rangers did a great first step, but there's still lots of ways to go. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'd say so. And don't get me wrong, since you guys, one thing about the Padres is a lot of the money was set up too. We didn't even mention like part of this transition from the 2019 to 2021. Like they sign Fernando Tatis Jr. to his extension. So you guys have the money aspect. Now, the good news is that hopefully that farm system starts bulking up. But you do have to be careful, because that's one of the things with the Padres is they can't really go out, or at least they could, you know what I mean? They technically could. But in terms of, you know, they already are a top 10 spending team. It's hard to maneuver that roster around when you've got guys like Myers making a decent amount next year. You got the ground ball gremlin. You got Tatis. You got Machado. You got all these guys. You got Darvish and Snell, and it adds up. The Rangers, they're dipping their toes into the part of spending money. The question is, you have the star power. Can you build around them now? Can you do all that without, you know, burying yourself in a situation? You don't want to be an Angels situation. The Padres aren't quite at the Angels level of like, oh my God, we have like Hall of Fame talent on our team, but we can't do much. Like we can't maneuver around. They aren't in that zone you don't want to be. Like the Phillies is another team. They aren't quite in that zone yet. But if they don't be careful, and if they don't fix things a little bit, and if guys don't perform and bounce back next year, they very well could be. And we'll be looking back at Sports Illustrated cover story from Tom Verducci about the Dodgers versus the Padres being the next great rivalry. And we're all going to be like, wow, yeah, remember that? And I really don't want to think that way, but it's true.
Well, the Rangers have done the hard part of getting the stars. The Padres have some stars and a lot of fun potential. This should be fun. I'm hoping for a 2023 Rangers-Padres World Series, in which case I will be very happy. Either Jerks and Profar and Yu Darvish will get their rings, or the Rangers will, and things will be bright and breezy, and we can, you know, I'll bring up the wonderful retrospective about some stupid 3-0 count where Fernando Tatis Jr. swung when he absolutely should have, and was justified in everything that happened there. But thank you guys so much. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Padres. That's going to do it for this. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.
Absolutely. Whoop, whoop.